Hello and welcome to the Heat Check podcast, the Miami Herald's Miami Heat podcast. I'm David Wilson. I'm joined, as always, on the other line by our Heat beat writer here at the Herald. It's Anthony Chang. Anthony, usually they say this during March Madness, but it's cold outside, but the action's heating up on the hardwood.
You're wearing a sweater. How about that?
I've got a sweatshirt on. It's not that cold right now, but this morning when I woke up, it's like 59 degrees.
True Miami guy now.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway, it
was nice.
Feels a little bit like fall. Feels like winter coming around the corner. Feels like basketball season a little bit. We are recording this, we should say, on Tuesday evening, ahead of the Heat's Wednesday preseason game. So, if we miss out on talking about 44-point game from Drew Smith or something, that's why.
I think we might need to do an emergency pod if Drew Smith scores 45
well,
points.
maybe because our big topic this week, again, just preseason, we want to make sure what we talk about isn't super old news. Our main topic this week is going to be the continuing fight for the 14th roster spot for the Heat. Got 3 two-way guys and 3 other Exhibit 10 guys fighting for that roster spot. We assume one spot because the Heat always like to leave a 15th spot open for a buyout guy, or it helps to have flexibility when you're the Heat and guys want to come play for you. So I guess we should start. I don't know. First, you want to kind of just run through the list of guys who are vying for this, and I don't know, give it one sentence of each of them, and then we'll dive in maybe to a couple of guys specifically. We talked a lot about a couple of them last week.
Yeah.
So we don't have to go in depth on every person, but why don't you want to just run through the 6 guys fighting for this spot?
Yeah. So last week there were 8 guys fighting for this spot.
Yes.
Drew Peterson and Alanis Williams were cut over the weekend. 2 Exhibit 10 guys. They will most likely be transitioned to Sioux Falls, but that kind of, not officially, but common sense will say that takes them out of the picture, right? They're not really competing for that 14th spot at this point after they were cut. So like you said, that leaves 6 guys. I'll run through them real quick, give you a quick sentence on each one. RJ Hampton, two-way guy. Upside, former first-round pick, right? I think he's going to be a long-term play here. I know he's hurt right now in the preseason, hasn't really played much because of that injury. But it seems like the Heat want to invest at least some developmental time in him. I wouldn't expect him at the 14th spot because he hasn't played much in the preseason, but he's a candidate. Another one, that was more than one sentence, I'm sorry. Drew Smith is the other two-way guy. 3rd preseason with the Heat, brings experience, kind of the veteran among the young guys, I guess. He's 25, 26 years old. The Heat really, really like him. They're high on him. Fills a position of need as a point guard. As a pesky defender, facilitates. Not really a scoring guard, but can be a point guard, which the Heat need. Then the 3 Exhibit 10 guys: Chick Diallo, energy guy, big body, physical, kind of a screen setter, gets rebounds, putbacks, that type of stuff. Again, wouldn't expect him to get a two-way. Probably going to end up with Sioux Falls, I guess, at this point, as an Exhibit 10 guy. Played last year, I think, in Japan.
Chick Diallo, former number 3 recruit.
Yeah, he was a high pick. The Clippers. Yeah,
and a high pick too.
I think he's played over 100 NBA games. So
yeah,
maybe he's the veteran among the young guys. I don't know. Maybe it's not Drew Smith. Justin Champagny, another guy who's familiar, been in the Heat system, was with Sioux Falls last year, at least part of it. Good scorer. He can score the ball. Really good rebounder for a guard, for a guy his size. He's intriguing. He has an interesting skill set that I think the Heat like. We'll see. I think he's a candidate maybe to get a dark horse to get that 14th spot. The other Exhibit 10 guy is Cole Swider, who he's covered last week.
Yeah, we talked very extensively about him.
I think fans know about him by now. He's a really good shooter. Everyone's saying that he reminds them of Duncan Robinson, kind of a similar story from the Northeast, went undrafted, has a podcast, is a big shooter. I mean, he's even taller than Duncan Robinson at 6'9". Yep. So he's another guy with an intriguing skill set that, a shooter, a developmental guy who's a shooter, can be an elite shooter, the Heat have had success in developing those type of players. So he's a name to watch. And the last one is the third two-way guy who I think is the favorite to the 14th spot, Jamal Cain. He was on a two-way contract with the Heat last year. Has played in summer league with the Heat 2 straight years. He's gotten better. He's become a better 3-point shooter. He's become a better overall defender. He's athletic. Probably a power forward in the NBA, even though he's not that big. He's skinny and he's 6'6", 6'7", but he just plays bigger than his size because of his athleticism. Versatile defender, good offensive rebounder. Maybe doesn't do one thing great, but just does a little bit of everything well. And he's kind of gotten better again at shooting the 3-point shot, which is important for his fit on this current Heat roster. So those are the 6 guys.
Yeah, let's dive, I guess, mostly into Jamal Cain. Again, we talked a lot about Cole Swider last night. He's interesting because of a lot, as to kind of sum up what we talked about last week. He's interesting because of the stuff that he is good at is not just stuff the Heat obviously values, but stuff the Heat have a really good track record of developing. Not whether it's Duncan Robinson or Max Strus. They've obviously had a lot of success with guys who have one really good skill, when that skill is 3-point shooting and turning it into, a good NBA player. But Jamal Cain, kind of broke out, I would say, in the last preseason game, was it, right?
The last 2 games.
The last two games, really, yeah. And, in some ways he is in that, same lineage to an extent as, as a Duncan or Gabe Vincent or Haywood Highsmith, right, where he's been in the program for a long time. And as we said last week, these Heat guys, they come out of nowhere. These undrafted, whatever you want to, I don't know, kind of, I feel like we do need a good name for this collection of Heat culture-ish people. They come out of nowhere to the general national spectator, but very rarely they come totally out of nowhere for us. They either stick around, they've been in the G League or Summer League staples, or, get a cup of coffee. I still think about when Gabe Vincent came up for a West Coast trip the year before the bubble year, I think. Or I think it was the bubble year.
I think it was the bubble year.
It was right before COVID and had to play and played pretty well on a West Coast trip. These guys stick around, and Jamal Cain fits that prototype for the Heat, where he has been in the program for a few years now and has been developed by this team. And if you believe that why the Heat are so good is how good they develop players, then that's a good calling card in his direction.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm breaking any news here. I think it's probably obvious, but I will tell you that it's true. Jamal Cain wasn't happy that he wasn't promoted to a standard contract this summer. Orlando, he saw his fellow two-way contract guy from last year, Orlando Robinson, get promoted to a standard contract in the summer. He thought he should have been promoted to a standard contract as well. He wasn't. He was a restricted free agent, just basically signed another two-way deal with the Heat with the hope of earning that standard spot in camp and in the preseason. So that's what he's trying to do. But look, in the first preseason game, he didn't get in until 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. It was very surprising. And even after that second game in San Antonio, when he scored 24 points and made 6 out of 8 from three, I think one of his first comments was as a returning two-way guy, I didn't expect not to get into the fourth quarter. That was surprising to me. So he's really had to kind of try to stay out of his own head, right, with all this happening, and all the attention and hype for Cole Swider, and kind of had to stay even-keeled, show his maturity and kind of stay the path. And that's what he's done. He's played really well these last two games. 7 of 10 on threes. Obviously, that's not sustainable if it is, man. He's going to get a max contract in a few years. He shoots 70% from three. But that shows you kind of the improvement, the work he's put in over the last year. He needs to hit threes at a decent rate to play. I'm not saying he's not a big role in the Heat this season. He probably won't play most games unless there are injuries if he makes the team. But he has a skill set now with his improved 3-point shot, his versatility on defense. He was guarding pretty much the point guard a lot of times during these last 2 games. Like Eric Spoelstra was testing his defensive skill set, and he was doing it well. He's a better. Spo mentioned that he's a better off-ball defender. Like last year, even though he's a good defender, he would like kind of get caught sleeping on the weak side, and his guy would get by him on a cut, or maybe there was a play he could have made he contested a layup and he didn't get there in time. He's gotten better as an off-ball defender. Even against the Grizzlies on Sunday, the 3rd preseason game, he was playing a little bit as a point guard, where he was bringing the ball up and showing off his ball handling. That's not a role he's going to have with the regular roster, but it just shows you kind of the overall skill set and how he's developed it over in his time with the Heat in the program. So I think he's a fit on this team because of how he's grown, and I think the Heat track record is they're going to reward guys who not only have been in the system for some time, but that have taken advantage of that time to get better, and the improvements are very evident. So, while after the training camp, and I didn't know if Jamal would get this spot because Drew Smith had a really good camp. I know that he really liked Drew Smith, but after the last 2 games, it just seems like Jamal Cain is the guy. He just seems like the best player right now that can help this team the most at the moment. It just seems like the easy pick, and sometimes got to keep it simple and go with the obvious choice.
Yeah, played in 18 games for the Heat last year, so a guy who really contributed last year, and checks a lot of Marquette and Oakland, checks a lot of Heat guy boxes.
Kendrick Nunn, Heat legend.
Yeah, and then obviously the Heat Marquette connection is runs very deep.
Who went to Marquette? I'm not sure. I forget.
Jay Crowder.
That's right, Jay Crowder. You're right. Yeah, it's true. And if they move Jamal Cain to the standard contract, they would then have an open 2-way slot. And I think that's where you could slide a guy like Cole Swider in, keep him in the program. And if he comes on, you really use him a lot in the NBA next season, and it gets to a 50-game limit or close to it, you then have the 15th roster spot that in January you can convert him to a center contract, and that'll be prorated, so it'll be a little cheaper. For tax purposes. So it just seems like a natural fit. I know Cole Swider is another guy who they could give Cole Swider the 14th spot, but I just think like the right. I know he have to make tough decisions, but the right thing to do is give it to the guy who has been on the 2-way and has gotten better already. Has been in your system. It just seems like the natural.
And he's more proven than Cole Swider.
Yeah.
I know Cole Swider's been great for this little run, had his moments in the preseason and stuff, but Jamal Cain has also been great in the preseason, and also, like I said, played almost 20 games for this team. And did he get in a playoff game at some point? He was.
He wasn't eligible because of 2-ways.
Oh, right, because 2-way stuff. Yeah. But he's been around, like you said, for a full year plus, and has had kind of a more successful NBA career than Cole Swider. We're talking about fractions of seasons at this point, but it would almost be more reactionary to make Swider the guy, unless you just really want a shooter, right? That would be the way that Swider beats out Cain, is we just need one more shooter to be around every day. But like you said, they can give Cain a standard contract and then give Swider a 2-way, and you basically have both of them anyway. So
yeah, exactly. There's a way you can do both, right? You could keep Cole in the 2-way, promote Jamal Cain. It seems pretty obvious that those are the 4 guys that will make it, right? That they're gonna keep. And I guess some fans want Drew Smith to be in the bubble, right? But I think Drew Smith is gonna survive the cuts. I really think that he like him. I think he brings us. He's a position of need. He has experience, and he's
valuable,
a reliable
good point guard down there.
Yeah, he's reliable.
Who's in your system? Who's running the offense in the way you want, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he's a reliable option that if you need another ball handler or if there are injuries, he could fill that. So, I would expect Drew Smith, Cole Swider, R.J. Hampton, and Jamal Cain to be the four guys in those three two-way slots in that 14th spot that are still going to be in the roster next Monday. The deadline is Monday. The Heat are going to have to make these cuts by Saturday because of the 48-hour waiver period. So by Saturday, we should know, Saturday at 5 o'clock. And then Monday, is the deadline to officially finalize regular season rosters for opening night.
Yeah. RJ Hampton, as you mentioned, has not played very much in the preseason, but he's another former 5-star recruit, was one of the best players in the country coming out of high school. So an interesting guy to have in the program.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's almost certainly not going to be in the NBA, but an interesting guy to have down in the G League developing for you.
Yeah, he's an upside guy, right? Like he's a guy with talent. He has talent. It's about finding a role for him, developing that skill set. And it's more of like a long-term play for the Heat here.
Right.
It's not somebody that's why like people are like, oh, he's injured, he might get cut. He might not, they might cut him for somebody else. It's not about being injured for 2 weeks with the Heat. They didn't get RJ Hampton for the next 3 weeks.
It's like when they picked up Kendrick Nunn at the end of that one season.
Right.
Like that was like an idea. Like this guy he was a star in college, a really highly ranked recruit coming out of high school. You kind of bet on the pedigree, just get him in your system, and worst case it doesn't work out. Best case you find another real contributor.
Yeah. So that would be my prediction. I could be totally off. It could be Chick Diallo who gets the 14th spot. I could be totally wrong, but it just almost seems too obvious right now, right? That Jamal Cain will get it. But it just seems like the right decision at this point, not only from like the standpoint of he's been in the system, he's gotten better, but he can help. I think he can help this team if needed. Like he has the overall skill set, and he's gotten better to the point where if he does need to play 10 minutes because Caleb Martin is out, I don't think that he would blink an eye. Like he can hit an open three as a spacer. He can defend. I think he's gotten like 7 offensive rebounds in the last 2 games. He's really good on the offensive glass, which is actually 9 offensive rebounds in the last 2 games. Really good in the offensive glass, which the Heat covet, right? That's what kind of the Heat like to win the possession game. So that's a trait that probably works in his favor.
Yeah.
And just can create turnovers with his defense and can block shots because he's long. So there's just a lot of things that he does that I think fit what the Heat want to do around Bam, Jimmy, and Tyler.
All right. Before we finish out, let's talk about some guys who are actually going to play a lot of minutes for the team this year. Again, it's preseason, not a whole lot to talk about, but Tyler Herro, kind of understandably, as we said last week, is one of the big storylines for this team in camp. Coming off all the trade rumors yet again, and coming into camp clearly like ticked off a little bit by it, but saying the right things, but also being honest about like his position has been strange. And he's come out in the preseason and he's done everything you could ask from him, and obviously the hype train is rolling a little bit again. It's not once you actually see Tyler Herro play, you remember that that guy's actually pretty good. He's not just this his weird trade chip.
Yeah, and I think Tyler Herro is going to be better this year. I think he's probably going to have a career year. I think I went on record last episode of saying that he's going to lead the Heat, in scoring average. But I just want to remind people one thing, okay? This is preseason. He had a really good performance against Memphis, which Memphis is a good defense. They were playing Jaren Jackson Jr. and some of their guys, and he got 30 points on 19 shots, got 5 free throws. I think only 3 of his shots were non-paint twos, like long mid-range shots. So there's been an adjustment there, right? They get more to the rim, draw fouls, take more threes, which is all encouraging. But 2 years ago, in the preseason in 2021, Tyler Herro also had a really good preseason. He averaged 23 points a game on 51% shooting, 45% on threes. I think he scored 29 points in one game on 15 shots. And he had a good year that year. But he didn't average that in the regular season, right? So, like, we all got to relax. Jimmy Butler is not playing. So, like, again, when Jimmy Butler comes in, he's going to take some of those shots away from Tyler Herro. Tyler Herro's going to have a very good season, but I don't more people are expecting him now to average 28 points a game, and like this huge leap is coming.
Yeah.
Let's not set ourselves up for disappointment with Tyler Herro. He's gonna have a really good year, but just temper your expectations.
The thing about Tyler Herro is he's like strangely super consistent. Like it feels like any game he goes out, he's just scoring like 22 points.
Yeah.
Right. Like obviously every once in a while he'll have a big night or he'll have a night where the shots just aren't falling. Like
it's more about efficiency, I think.
Yeah. But yeah, like preseason game, regular season game. We haven't, unfortunately, have not seen him a lot in the playoffs because of the injury last year. But he is, as an offensive player, super consistent. And the interesting thing I think you can take away from the preseason is, like you said, that shot distribution. Because if that is improved, and again, the mid-range is valuable, especially if you are the lead offensive guy, which obviously he's not, but in a lot of lineups he is. But if that shot, just like you said, it's about efficiency with him. If that shot distribution improves just a little bit, is there a leap where he's going to all of a sudden become an all-NBA guy? Probably not. But can he get into that fringe all-star conversation? Like, that doesn't feel unrealistic to me, especially as you said, if he's going to lead the team in scoring, like, he's going to have a real shot.
Yeah, I think, I mean, maybe I'm wrong here, but I get the sense that he's already kind of considered a fringe all-star. But I think he's one of those guys that, like, you don't pencil him as an all-star. He's never made it. But he's a guy that last year when he didn't make it, there was a conversation like, okay, where does he rank? Like, should he have been ahead of those guys? Like, I think he's kind of on the fringe all-star level. Obviously, his goal, he's said, is to be an all-star. Maybe that happens one day. I don't doubt it, right? But yeah, if he could, that is the thing I noticed from that preseason game against Memphis. It's one game, but the fact that his shot distribution has changed a little bit, and he mentioned it in training camp when I spoke with him.
Right.
That was an adjustment he wanted to make to get to the rim more. He's added muscle, which just helps with that. He wants to draw more free throws, which we saw a little bit against Memphis.
Go a long way because he's maybe the best free throw shooter in the NBA.
Right. I mean, he shoots 90+% from the free throw line consistently every season, pretty much. If he could get 3 more free throws a game, all of a sudden he's averaging, instead of 21, 24 or 25. That's a big difference. So if I had to put a prediction on what he's going to average, and I honestly don't like doing this, but what did he average last year? 20.1, I think. He averaged, 20.1 last year. His career high is 20.7 when he won 6th Man of the Year. I'm going to say he averages 22 points a game, 23 points a game on 45% shooting and 37% on threes, which I think that's good. Like, yeah,
very good.
If he does that, you take that, and he is a fringe all-star at that point. So again, I think Tyler Herro is going to lead the Heat in scoring.
All right, that's a pretty good prediction. I think we can leave things off there. You can follow Anthony on Twitter at Anthony_Chang. He's got obviously all your preseason coverage going on right now. Opening night is it'll be like a week away by the time people listen to this, basically.
A week away.
What day does the Heat open? Yeah.
Wednesday.
So it'll be a week away when less than a week away when most people listen to this. So, basketball season is here.
Basketball NBA preseason is quick, right? It feels like
it is. Yeah, I feel like it's gotten shorter. I think at some point they took a week out of it. It's also like some teams start early because they do like those foreign games or whatever. So like it's not like the NFL where it's like they do the Hall of Fame game and the preseason has begun. Really no sport. I guess spring training is kind of like that too, or spring training starts in like at the same time every year. But yeah, basketball and hockey, it's like.
All right,
some teams I feel like are still playing preseason games and the regular season starts. Yeah. Like it's very ramshackle, which is fine because these games are not a whole lot of stars playing in them.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'd rather this, I guess, than I think a few years ago I covered 8 Heat preseason games. I had 8 preseason games.
How many they have?
There's 5
year?
now.
5?
Yeah, 5, which is like still I feel like a lot, but it's a lot better than 8. That's like a tenth of a regular season schedule.
Especially when you've got summer league too. Like really, those are like because those are the guys people want to see in the preseason anyway. So, 8 plus a scrimmage. They do the whatever the
red, white, and pink game.
Red, white, and pink game.
And I don't know. I don't follow other team that's obviously as close as they do with the Heat. So I don't know how other teams handle it. But it seems like last few years, the Heat have taken the approach of in the preseason, we're going to do our dress rehearsal in practice. Like, we'll do it. Like when we asked, do you need a dress rehearsal game? Jimmy hasn't played. Caleb Martin hasn't played. Do you need one? And they're like, no, we can do it in practice. Like,
I think all these,
doors,
I can't, you know? I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine LeBron plays a preseason game like Steph Curry, right? Like,
right.
Yeah, we're not paying attention really unless those games are on ESPN. But I think these veteran teams, the young teams play their guys, right? Like the story of the preseason was the Wembanyama Chet game, right? Because no one had ever seen those two guys play really, other than Wembanyama in the preseason or in summer league, and obviously Chet in college. So
I think as we speak right now, I think Zion is putting on a show in Orlando. Actually,
there you go. He's got to play because I haven't seen him play since 2021. It feels like so.
Yeah.
But the Heat, again, like I don't need to see it. So, all right, that's a good plug for watching Heat games. I guess. Anthony stuff.
That should be the title of this episode. I don't need to see it. I don't need to see it or read it.
Read it. I don't need to see it. I'll read it. Thanks as always for listening. We'll talk to you guys next week.